What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Modern Craftsman podcast.
Good week.
Good week.
Busy week, huh?
I feel like it's always busy. I almost asked you what day it was. We literally record this the same day every week for the last 4 years or whatever.
What day is it? I think it's Tuesday.
It's Tuesday.
I think it's a week past JLC at this point.
A week past JLC. If you guys missed us at JLC,
couple days.
You got to head over to the Cape Cod Lumber Expo. It is
April 14th.
April 14th, right? Because I was going to what is it? The Build On Expo. Tyler and I were talking about this, and he was asking when the marathon is, and the marathon is the 18th. So thankfully I'm running it after this event. But yeah, April 14th, 12 to 7 p.m. in Randolph, Massachusetts, capecodlumber.com/build-on-expo-2022, or head over to capecodlumber.com. There's some links that you can follow. It is free. We will be there. We'll be chatting with you guys. So make sure you register. You do have to register. That is important. And it sounds like we're closing in on Chris's goal for that expo. So hopefully,
I guess when this comes out, it'll be 2 weeks away.
Yeah,
this will be next week. Yeah, so a little less than 2 weeks away.
God,
I'll be flying back up to Boston.
That means I got to run the marathon in a couple weeks.
Oh gosh, nah, I'm not jealous of you at all.
It'll be fine. My knees just hurt for like 3 days, and then we're good.
Forever.
Forever. Guys, today we have Brian Osborne from Osborne Construction out of Philly. Tyler's close neighbor.
Yeah, I didn't realize he was out of Philly. I was looking him up earlier today, and I didn't realize he was so close. I guess he's looking to do some jobs in Cape May, I think New York, some
L.A.
But yeah, super cool work. Very local to me.
Yeah, and not a typical background. You know, we've heard of guys making career changes, but Brian spent some time in acting. He was, I think he went as far to say he was a trained actor, which I guess means he's more professional than a non-trained actor. But interesting to hear kind of how he went from acting into construction and his thoughts on not only, nationwide expansion, but, what it would look like to sustain an acting career as well as a construction company, and if that's even possible.
Yeah, it's a good conversation. If you think it's dragging out, don't worry, it ends very abruptly. So normal time length.
The best ending in the history of this podcast. Let's get into it. How are you, Brian?
I'm really good. How are you?
I'm good. Tyler, I don't know if you know this. Brian and I chatted over DM months ago, and we planned to catch up. He was like, "Oh, I'm coming to Boston. Let's grab lunch." Meanwhile, I've followed his work, and it's great. It's awesome. I have no idea what this guy looks like. But we one time got in a conversation over DM about sneakers. He's like, "Oh, I see you rock white Chucks." I'm like, "Yeah, it's like my go-to." And he's like, "Dude, I always have white high-top Chucks on all the time on the job site. People say stuff about it. I always do." So confident as hell, I walk into the restaurant. I'm like, I don't know what this guy looks like, but I know what shoes he's got on. And sure enough, he walks in. He goes, "Nick." And I'm like, "Brian." I'm like, I had no idea what you look like, but I looked for the shoes, and sure enough, you were in them.
There you were. You had the shorties, and I had the high tops.
Yeah.
Yeah, I told you my brother.
If there was somebody who was wearing those shoes and it was not him.
I did think that, and I was like, "There's definitely a chance that could happen."
Right, like a group of high school students, like having lunch,
and
while they were touring a museum visit. Like, oh no.
Yeah, man. Like, I don't think you're like looking for us, dude. Like, I think wrong person, man.
Brian. Yeah, I told because my brother works at Converse. He's the director of digital media over there. So I get like 3 new pair every like 6 months. It's phenomenal.
Dude, that's awesome.
And
you
nobody
get
else.
Converse to sponsor the podcast.
Oh, that's not a bad idea.
That's actually one of the best ideas I've heard.
That's a really good
I don't know
idea.
how you wear the low top ones though, Nick.
Why?
I'm not a huge. I like low top Vans. I don't like low top Converse.
I'm in agreement with Tyler here. I have to say.
I'm not trying to hate on you. I like the high. Like, I never could get into the low top.
I like high. Most
Converse.
of my shoes are high top, but I bought those. I don't even know why I bought them on like a whim one day. Oh no, they came in like a Stitch Fix, and I put them on. I'm like, man, I really like these. And I even bought new socks for them, so I didn't see the socks.
Oh, right.
I was like, and I don't know. I just ever since then, I was like convinced. Actually, when I had seen you, I'm like, oh, I gotta get the high tops for winter.
Yeah, the high tops are good for winter time.
And it's like I went out and bought another set of Lows. But
oh wow, you really are addicted to the lows.
Yeah, I think so.
I can't get off the highs either. I don't have any lows. I think if I were to rock the low tops, it would be summertime. Beach.
It's fun. I mean, they're cheap too, which is awesome. They're like $55 or $60 or something like that. And it's like related, but I bought my wife a pair of sneakers that she really wanted. Expensive, of course, because they're women's. They're like these gold high tops, and they're cool looking. And I'll never forget. One day I came home and she was like, "Do you like them?" I'm like, "Yeah." And she's been wearing them for a week. She goes, "I was thinking about it the other day. Like thinking about what?" She goes, "If I wear these every day, say they last like, a year. If you do the math on that, the cost per wear is really low." I was like, I already bought them for you. Why are you justifying the cost? I was like, you know what the cost per wear for my $60 sneakers are? A penny a day.
So maybe less.
A penny.
Yeah. I'm sort of hard on mine, so they don't last a long time.
Yeah,
I have the gold, like a mustard pair right now. That's my latest and greatest. Because my white ones are they're a little beat up.
I get a lot of hate on it for YouTube. It's like, oh, you're not a real builder. Why are you wearing white sneakers on a job site?
What?
So, well, I mean,
because work boots are really uncomfortable, and if you've ever dealt with feet issues, if you've been on your feet for 20 years, any good carpenter I know wears like Vans or like a really good high top sneaker.
Yeah,
it's like,
I wear my work boots, and but now I'm at a point where I'll like purposely not put my work boots on.
Yeah.
For the video.
Yeah. Oh, right. Because you're like, come on now.
Yeah, whatever, man.
Yeah, give it to me. Lay it on me.
Until I step on a nail, I'm like, oh, damn.
Oh, God damn it.
He was right.
You never admit it, though.
I remember when I was younger, I was one of 5, and we were so cash poor that my parents used to buy us fake Converse. And I'm like, Converse aren't even expensive now. And I'm like, you couldn't afford, like, they had the circle, but there was just no like blue or red star. There was nothing in the circle.
I remember
just like
those.
Black shoes with the white.
I feel like my kids have those.
They were from Payless, right, Tyler?
I want to say Payless or maybe like Kmart or something. They also
they
bought
were
us
like $18.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know. In my head, still Converse are only $30. So I'm like, how much could they have been saving?
Right. They were like $20.
I forgot about Payless. I remember every year you go there for your new school shoes, and
oh hell yeah, yeah.
Now it's like you just order everything online, it shows up.
Yeah.
You wear Vans every day, right, Tyler?
Typically, yeah. I wear I have boots that I'll wear boots if I need to.
What are they? Red Wing?
Yeah. And I've got them rebuilt a couple of times.
Yeah.
I do like boots. It's just sometimes they are uncomfortable.
Yeah, especially when you're down with your feet underneath you, on your knees doing something. It's like the boots don't flex enough, where it's like you want your foot to kind of just fold.
Yeah.
I keep getting these ads for oddly enough Knicks boots, and they're handmade. It's all their TikTok is literally them in the shop hand making these things, and I was like, all right, fine, I'm interested. And it's order one of our test boots. It will help you determine what size you are. 12-week lead time for a test boot.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, this is a commitment. And it's and every time I go to do it, I'm like, I just don't feel like waiting 12 weeks. I'm like, but if I order it now, it'll eventually show up.
You got to try it out just for fun.
And it's I've talked to a few people. They're like, oh, they're really nice, and they're they last forever. But yeah, I mean that's the way I'm with boots. It's I have a pair of Red Wings. I have 2 pairs in my truck. It's the same thing. It's I just kick them back out and get them resold.
Yeah.
But I hate.
Yeah, the soles on the Red Wings
when they're
fall
new.
apart so quick. No, they're brutal when they're new. Yeah.
It's
also, I fall on my ass on my Red Wings a lot.
Yeah.
Time,
slippery.
Bottoms are way too slippery.
Yeah, I have like the mock toe ones, and the bottoms with the wedge sole is very slick in the winter.
Slick. Yeah.
And dangerous.
I've definitely ended up on my ass a couple times.
They have one where it's like, I think it's a black sole, but it's got almost like a clear like rubber coating on the bottom. Those things are sticky. You can be on wet, polished concrete, and it'll grip.
Just frozen lake.
Yeah,
I always like the wedge sole because you can't track anything into somebody's house with them.
Yeah, I like that. That's the go-to. I think they were designed for iron workers, right?
Yeah,
because the heel doesn't
I
get
don't do
stuck.
much of that.
Would you though, if you had the opportunity?
I don't know. I'm like not super. I can appreciate it. It's just I don't think that it gives you enough. It's almost like tile work where you can't. There's not enough wiggle room. Like I like working with wood and being able to kind of manipulate it a little bit. And I think that you have a little bit of wiggle room there, and you can like. There's such tight tolerances with steel and tile and all that stuff that it gives me anxiety.
I mean, I can tell you, I know some specific stories around like buildings and the tolerance isn't that tight.
No, but
that torch comes out quite a bit.
Yeah, but I just feel, I don't know, with
I feel like
wood,
the tolerances with wood and finished carpentry is much tighter than steel. Well, unless it's like finished.
I guess it's more so like that you can always manipulate the wood to make it work.
Right. You can shave a little off. Steel's not as easy.
Yeah, and also like you can have some sort of like artistic or like a little bit of input to manipulate it to make it work, even though it may not be perfect. And with steel, it's like it either fits or it doesn't. And it's not like, well, we could add this layer here and then it'll hide that and you won't see that. I just don't feel like it gives you a lot of room for like that artistic interpretation.
It's funny when I asked you that question, I wasn't thinking of the work. I was thinking about being tied off, climbing 300 feet.
Oh, no,
like,
I'm not.
Just the lifestyle.
I don't need that.
That's literally the way I thought of it. But I don't think
iron worker life.
Yeah, I mean, I've met enough of those guys where I know that I'm not as hard as them. You know, like I'm not cut from the same cloth. I would like to think I could hang out with them, but they would destroy me. You know,
I don't love heights the older I get either.
That's fair.
I don't think it used to bother me as much, and now I'm like, I don't want to be up on a roof anymore. I mean, I'm fine with it, but I wouldn't want to make a living doing that.
You know what is all like, speaking of heights, we're doing this renovation, and all the joists were exposed, and it's like you walk across the joist like it's, you know, but you're thinking about it. Like you're walking across, like if you fall, it's gonna hurt. It's 4 feet, but it's still, you fall the wrong way in between the joists, it's gonna hurt. The moment you put insulation on in between those joists, it's like you don't think of anything. Like it's like, oh, I'm just gonna prance across this floor at this point. It's like they're like I can't even fall through this, and it's like, why does that little bad insulation give me that much confidence? And it's like because you can't see
down. Yeah,
and it's like it could be 200. It could be a 200-foot hole, and wouldn't even think about it. It's
your brain messes with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my old work vans, I mean, I just burned through them. So at some point, maybe 5 or so years ago, I started throwing them up in the trusses in my shop, like they used to do on like the utility poles in the city.
Isn't that for drugs?
I don't know what it is, but I I even throw like the girls up there now when they outgrow them. I tie the laces together and swing them up on. I was out with Tilly the other day doing them. She's like, "How are we gonna get them up there?" I was like, "I'll show you."
4
so
times.
Now I have like a
finally.
collection. It's the graveyard.
One of the most commonly believed reasons that shoes are thrown over power lines is to signal the location of a crack house or a prime drug dealing spot.
Yep. Yeah, you want to come to Philly, you see those at every corner, but they're really, sometimes it seems like to me that
I think nowadays it's just like it's beyond
I think it's
that.
I think it's beyond that. It's like, that looks like the first two were maybe an indication, and then it becomes somewhat of an urban sculpture situation.
It's like that bridge. They put all the locks on it. It's like, the first few, it was like cool, and then all of a sudden it's like, actually, this is a structural failure waiting to happen.
Guys, chill. Yeah.
So Tyler, if you ever go to sell your house, just make sure you cut those down before they walk it.
Yeah,
like we were gonna buy it, but have you guys seen the crack house?
Crack house
in the backyard.
They're making meth out in the shop.
Hey guys, a few words about our sponsors. This podcast is brought to you by Duration Molding and Millwork. If you guys didn't catch them over at JLC, you missed out. They had all of their new profiles. They actually just came out with that starter strip that we talked about in last week's episode. And if you guys aren't familiar with it, it's the boral fly ash material. And Duration Molding and Millwork is the only provider that is manufacturing this stuff into molding profiles, siding profiles, and doing it with incredibly short lead times.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna note. We were at the show, and he had this pretty ornate decorative bracket, and he's like, what, 7 or 8 day turnaround?
Well, he said no. All he said was 8 days. I was like, wow, that's
or 8.
Yeah,
or 8.
No, he said 8 days because I was like,
8 days. Yeah.
And I was like, man, that took 8 days to machine. He goes, no, from the time of shop drawing.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I'm an idiot.
Expensive bracket.
Yeah. I was like, wow. But yeah, incredibly short lead times. I did give him an idea. Can't talk about it here because I got to get the patent for it, but I'm going to request some equity in that. But either way, if you guys want to learn more about them, make sure you follow them on Instagram, Duration Molding Millwork, durationmillwork.com. Podcast is also brought to you by Reno Run. They are in Montreal, Toronto, Boston, Chicago, Philly, and Washington, D.C. Building materials exactly when you need them. Even oversized orders, they can handle big, large, and extra large. They're equipped to deliver any size. That's what, a lot of you guys probably know them around the last minute, hey, I forgot a box of screws, and they'll take care of that. But they really do want to be your one-stop shop when it comes to building materials.
Yeah, when you go to sign up for that first time, they do offer a deal. It's a free first delivery, right? If you mention the podcast.
Yep. Podcast.renorun.com/Modern Craftsman.
Yeah, and if this is something that you want to see kind of come to your local area and you have friends or colleagues that work in an area that, has Reno Run, have them use it, check it out, and then, that's going to help them kind of grow and expand to other markets. So if this is something that you want to see elsewhere, spread the news for them, and, get that growth happening a little quicker than just sitting around and waiting for it to show up in your area one day.
Yeah, that's true. They're actively growing and looking to get into the right markets. It'll be really interesting to see what they do in the next few years. If you guys want to learn more, runorun.com. This podcast is also brought to you by Rockwool, high-performance, fire-resistant, soundproofing stone wall installation for your interior and your exterior walls. Not only helping you to overachieve local building codes and building standards, but getting ahead of future codes. So we talked about our Rhode Island project. Tyler, you were able to.
That's what I was gonna say. It's like Rockwool heaven on earth. Yeah, it's like Rockwool, East Providence, satellite location.
It is. But you even said it on site. It's like it's weird that stuff's below grade, and we've had a lot of feedback about like, oh, can it truly be there? But you touched it, you grabbed it. It's performing. It's
fine. Nothing wrong with it. It's interesting to see though where it's like buried.
Yeah. It's one of the we've talked about that project a bunch, but we're just starting another brand new construction project. And what I like about them is we kicked them over the drawings. The team over there have taken the drawings from the architects. A lot of the installation details haven't been flushed out. And I said, hey, Rockwool, work with us on this. And they hopped on the phone with they actually hopped on site with Mike, our super on that job site, and just started walking through. It's like, all right, this is where you should be using it. This is how you can achieve code here. They found some pinch points in the roof, and they're working through those details with Mike. And that's what I really like about their technical department, is that they can help really develop best practice. And they're going to be straight up if they can't, if they can't truly get us where we need to be from a code compliance or even a performance, perspective. They'll make recommendations on how we can do that, even if it's not their product.
Yeah, it's a nice thing too that they're helping you create a product that you can stand behind and don't have to worry about if potentially failing.
Exactly. And if you want to be part of a, having access to that and become part of a premium partnership program, head over to rockwell.com/rclass. It's support and training by their team, of residential pros. You get samples, potential rebate savings, and much more. This podcast is also brought to you by Upstate Merch. Upstate Merch is a quality-focused screen printing, embroidery, and graphic design shop located in Whitney Point, New York. And for over 12 years, Upstate prides themselves on using only the best materials and American-made tools to get your job done. With their highly trained staff and graphic design team, they will walk you through the process and find the right garment and printing style for your needs. And whether you're looking for giveaway shirts, embroidered hats, safety wear, polos, hoodies, or you're looking for a top-quality garment to outfit your team, Upstate has you covered. If you guys want to check them out, upstatemerch.com, or you can shoot them an email, print@upstatemerch.com. And what do they get?
10% off. That's a lot of money.
It is. So, especially if you're ordering for a whole crew of people.
Yeah. The other cool thing about, I followed Dylan and Upstate for a while now, but kind of seeing, he was even at just a trade show in Atlantic City this past weekend, and he's always out there kind of looking for the next best thing and ensuring that he's kind of up to date with the technology and what's out there and kind of bettering his business. So definitely check them out. Get 10% off. Order some gear. It's not just t-shirts. They have capability to do a lot of things, but check out their website.
Absolutely. Yep. And like Tyler said, make sure you mention the Modern Craftsman podcast in that email to receive 10% off your first order. Brian, you didn't start in this industry.
No, I'm a trained actor and playwright. Like, I started in the performing arts, and I graduated with a degree in theater and a minor in business and Spanish. So I grew up down in Florida. I speak Spanish. I did a show with like this cast of Argentinians for like a year in New York and in Vegas, and that really, really dialed in my Spanish. But my brother, is like a photographer. My grandfather, my great-grandfather built houses, custom houses in California. Both of them went broke because they couldn't stop obsessing over the details. And they just ended up losing their ass all the time. And then my dad was a civil engineer and then got into sales and real estate and development. And when I grew up in Florida, I was sort of always, even from when I was a kid, I was always around building. So when I moved to Philly in 2005, after having been in New York for 10 years, sort of cutting my teeth as an actor and, running bars and restaurants, I got really sick of doing restaurant work. And I had moved to Philly to sort of do devised theater, which was just I wanted to make one piece a year, make something from scratch. And
what do you mean make something? Like a production?
Well, no. So, for instance, devised theater versus like a play that's already written by like Edward Albee or something. You just go in and read the script. The script is already written. Maybe it's just been written. Maybe it's 50 years old. The dialogue is in there. The blocking is all in there. The characters are all in there, and then you cast it. But when you do devised theater, you have an idea of something that you want to make from scratch. Like one of the first pieces I made in Philly was about the intersection between the death of roller derby or Depression era dance marathons and the birth of roller derby. It was just kind of, we took a year and like made a piece. So every year I made a piece, and then I started working with my now project manager, we've worked together since I moved here in 2005. He had a small company. We did mostly finish work. And I was just so sick of working at restaurants, and he needed a hand, and I just started working with him. But I bought this late 1800s house here in Philadelphia when I moved from Philly, and I gutted it and did a couple structural moves, and holy shit, that was a real baptism by fire. And I learned a ton by doing that. I had a nervous breakdown. It was so stressful. I was making up a lot as I went along, and I had stopped doing everything except working on this house. And so I really came to it out of necessity, and I tired of, sort of working in bars and restaurants. So I started working with him, and that was like January of 2006, and sort of never looked back from there. And then as Martin, who's my project manager, and I kept working together, we worked together for like a year and a half, and then I think eventually I just became a pain in his ass because I kept kind of dipping out and going to auditions and doing these. He was like, this just isn't going to work for me. I just need something more consistent. So then I sort of hung a shingle on my own right in 07, right to 07, 08, right at the crash. And then I really began to sort of appreciate like sort of running my own business and finding work and the consistency. And it was just me for, I don't know, a year and a half or so. And then I had a helper, and then I managed to get a couple bigger size projects, and then Martin came over and started project managing, and now the rest is sort of history. So now we're 13 of us now. We have three project managers, operations manager, and 12 in-house labor. So, sort of when the pandemic hit, we just leaned hard into vertical integration and self-performing everything, because out of necessity, right? Just keeping projects moving, keeping projects on budget, no subcontractors showing up. So, but I mean, they're pretty similar. Like, they're both productions, and to come at building houses, and I still do a fair bit of design work. And to sort of back up a little bit, we had before the pandemic, we were full design build. So we had a in-house architecture team of 2 heavy hitter architects from Kieran Timberlake, and 2 young designers that I hired that were like the star of their class at this sustainability program at Philly U here, which is a pretty rad 5-year terminal degree program that focuses on living building challenge, sustainability, passive house. But when the pandemic hit, the 2 big architects went out on their own, and we just went full construction. We really focused on, we doubled our, because of that demand, we doubled our, in-house team and our, so I'll still do some design. So I come to sort of building with that sort of artistic brain, but I really think there's so many similarities with the production of, a piece, a show, the birth of an idea, the birth of, design intent, whether it's mine or it's more likely than not now, it's architects and other designers that are calling us up. But it is a very, you have to be very humble. You have to be like, you have to know yourself. You have to know what you're good at, what your team's strengths are, so that you can stay curious, you can stay humble and interested, and ask the people that, can offer more intelligence on things that are new. And but it is that excitement, right? Like, it's that, and I'm sure, Nick, you can appreciate this with as much as you've grown and as ambitious and as fast as you've grown, and especially this year with the higher degree of difficulty projects. You want to be right on that balance where you're like, oh hell yeah, and oh shit, right? Where you're just like, this is terrifying and exciting. The gaps that are there, I feel confident that I can fill, but I have to stay really attentive and really focused. Like, walking over those joists, it's like, all right, gotta wake up,
So what was the point of initially keeping design in-house, just to kind of control what type of projects you were doing?
Yeah, I think when I went full architecture and design build, we had done so many projects where we burned hundreds of hours of project management time making sense of the design intent and translating it to either a renovation or figuring out a structural detail that intersected with a mechanical that would never ever work. And on paper, there's never a perfect design, right? It can only be as complete as one might hope it would be. But there's always, carpentry and construction is somewhat of an interpretive art, right? There's a few different roads to get to the same destination, but for us and for me, it was about leaning a little harder into that artistic, kind of the artistic soul, and feeding that creative energy that I had. And more importantly, having all of the details on the fly. And, if we had an RFI, we could have an answer in 30 minutes, not 3 weeks. And to keep efficient and to keep projects on time and to keep us profitable, to control that information and to remove those hundreds of hours that we weren't getting paid, as project, as either owner, operator, project manager, or my project managers weren't getting paid to figure out all of these fastidious details. We would just be able to just draw them and just have, be in Revit and draw a little detail and spit it out. And it was a dual revenue stream, really, right? It was a longer revenue stream for us, right? So if a project lasts 1 year, the design can sometimes last 6 months to up to a year. So if we're getting a project in-house that we know is going to be design build and we sign the contract, it's got a longer revenue stream. It's also a more diverse revenue stream than just construction, because, when the pandemic hit, architects kept architecting, right? Like designers kept designing, and they all still continue to at home. And when I was shut down, we were only shut down in Philly for like 6 weeks. So we were back May 1st doing construction, and my whole team couldn't wait to kind of get back. And we did it, slowly and cautiously and safely. But it was really the control of information and being able to. It was a double-edged sword, though, Tyler. I mean, it was hard. Once you design build, you own all of it. You can't, as the builder, go, there's no detail here. This under cabinet lighting was never really called out. We've got 200 feet of it, it turns out. And if I didn't draw that, or if my architects didn't draw it, but it says under cabinet light, and you just buy it,
Right.
Whereas you can point to the drawings as a contractor. And I think, honestly, the triangle between, contractor, architect, owner is a good one, right? Like each corner can keep one of the other points in check. And I think there's a dual fiduciary responsibility that architect has to owner, that builder has to owner. And ultimately, I want to work for owners. I don't want to work for architects. I don't want to have a contract being held by an architect. I want to work with an owner. I want to cultivate deep, long-term relationships with folks that are going to tell the people they know about our experience, and we're going to risk something together for the result of a beautiful thing.
So the architects that you had in-house, I look at your work and kind of stylistically and the personality that's there, and it's very design driven. Were your architects more so, I know you said they were heavy hitters, but were they more so have less of a personality, more so just like being able to get these designs done, signed off on, like you said, working in Revit? Because it seems as though you want to control the personality and more so the design of that job rather than like the structurals and the mechanicals.
Yeah, that's a great question.
I just think they would it's almost, if you had somebody in-house that was doing that, you'd almost butt heads some.
Yeah, there was a lot of that, to be very honest with you, Tyler. I think there was, that's a great question, and that you intuit that became and was an issue. It very much was so, actually. It wasn't that there were two different tastes. It was that as, architects which is a characteristic I love, but also I think as builders sometimes we wrestle with, the egos tend to be much bigger and much more fragile. Whereas I feel like, this is a sort of generalization, but I feel like builders are ultimately, unless you're like the builder on Money Pit and you just chant 2 weeks all the time. 2 weeks. You're a people pleaser, right? And architects are known to be far more unwavering and more opinionated. And so yeah, that was a real dynamic that we wrestled with, and I think ultimately that was the reason why we why COVID sort of facilitated that move out. But the presence of, so these two architects, their background at Karen Timberlake was doing like Wash U. I mean, you can look at these buildings. They are highly, highly decorated buildings. And Michael and Trevor, their firm now, Phenotype, is doing extremely well, and we still work with them. They're still calling us in for other projects. But I think that it was, COVID was just a moment, right, where it brought everything, any decision that anyone was thinking about maybe making, all of those maybes became like really, really decisive. I feel like everyone was sort of walking on this line of, or maybe not even a line, but like a wider road of maybe I'll go down there, or I wish I would have done this, and then COVID just smooshed everything together and put everyone on a tightrope, and it was sort of like, make sure you know where you're going or jump off. And I feel like it was just this cathartic moment. I don't know if you guys felt like this, but it just was like this moment that was undeniably imbued decisiveness on all of us, and it was and that was sort of facilitated and magnified sort of some of those oblique dynamics within the firm, you know what I mean? And then it was just like, cool, I'm going to go out and do my thing. And I was like, oh, okay. I think that's great, actually, because now I don't feel the pressure. I can just focus on my team, make sure I get them their employment. I can get the PPP money and make sure everyone's good at home. Because, having 12 people with families, some have 3 kids, some, it's a big responsibility. And you're like, holy shit, like, I want to make sure everyone, this is scary. And I want to make sure I'm using the resources and you need to be a general at that point and kind of like pull everything together. And I felt like I just wanted to do that, and we had done that for so long, and our reputation had preceded us for building really high quality, high performance buildings. And I just was like, okay, let's just focus back on that again,
Yeah, I almost feel that as though COVID either made people just not stop and grow to kind of fulfill that like need for their work and that demand, or a lot of people were like, hey, we need to step back and kind of prioritize and figure out what works for us. It was almost like two paths. People either just put their head down and were like, there's so much going on right now, let's just grow without thinking. Or it's like, hey, you know what? Let's kind of take a step back. This was a huge scare. It's busy now. Let's figure out where we're headed.
Yeah, that's what we did. Yeah, and I think that's what you, Tyler, can we back up a moment? What is your connection to NS Builders, and are you, what's your position there? Like,
I'm not at NS Builders.
Okay.
So I'm in Jersey.
Oh, you are?
Close to Philadelphia.
Okay.
I live in Medford. I went to school in Philly.
Oh, really? Wait, Medford's really close. We get all of our cedar from Medford Cedar.
Yeah, that's right down the street from me.
We're a half hour into the podcast, and I'm like, who is this fella?
Yeah.
That would be my fault, Brian. I probably led you into this incorrectly.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, so my wife and I met at Drexel, and then I'm from South Jersey originally, and I work pretty much over here in South Jersey primarily. I don't go into the city. It's just like a different beast.
Cool. And you're a builder down there?
Remodeling contractor. Yeah.
Cool.
So I primarily work in like Haddonfield, Morristown area.
Okay. Nice.
Older homes, but like all remodeling.
Nice. Do you ever go down to like the shore or?
Not
Cape May.
Not typically. The Cape May is such a hike.
Got it.
And I just don't do a ton of work, so traveling that far just doesn't make sense to me. So like all of my work is very close proximity, one job, and then 2 blocks over I'm on another job.
Wow, that must be really nice.
Yeah, and like I don't deal with traffic and parking issues. So I mean, like my van now is 6-7 years old, and I have like 55,000 miles on it, and I drive it every day.
Wow. Yeah, you're like
so I'm close to you.
Proximity.
I don't work with Nick, so there's no actual correlation. Just
got it.
Just podcast friendship.
Yeah.
But you're always on the podcast?
Yeah, he's a co-host.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
I really screwed that up. Hey Brian, be on this podcast and no information.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I've listened to the podcast a few times and I've definitely heard your voice on there, Tyler. And but I don't think I gleaned from any of the listens sort of where you were set up and what your connection to Nick was, but that's cool.
Yeah, I don't remember what we were talking about before that. I'm like so foggy brained right now being sick, so you have to excuse me.
Oh yeah. Tyler got COVID at JLC.
Oh, at JLC.
Yeah.
It had to be.
It's unconfirmed, but now like my wife has it and my kids have it, and my wife was supposed to go to Mexico for work on Monday morning, and like I tested positive. And she's like, well, I can't leave the country because then I get stuck out of the country. And then she ended up testing positive, and our kids are not at school. So it's just like a mess right now.
Bummer.
But my brain is a bit hazy.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking about scaling and using the time during COVID.
Right.
I think that, that was, I agree. Like I felt like everyone around us was in growth mode. And when it first hit, we had made a few hires really quickly, but it was like for me, there was an immediate, realization as this is not what I want to do. I don't want to use this time to scale up. I want to use this time to think about how we're building, what we're doing, what are our processes. Yeah. And it was a similar time as to when I started talking to my now director of ops, Julian, where he was out in San Francisco, and he was talking about moving back here, and I was like, let's expedite that move, and let's start talking about what your role could be here back in Boston. And that's really what 18 months of hard work went into, just thinking about like what we're doing, what we're building, how we're going to grow from this. And it's funny, I don't think I've ever said it out loud or had someone else say it, where it's like, you do walk that line of like, holy shit, this is awesome, but holy shit, this is scary. Yeah. And but that's how, I mean, even beyond my career, I feel like that's just how I've always lived life.
Yeah.
Is or at least more recently is like my decision making has been very much of that way, where it's like, yeah, this is crazy, and maybe there's 10 reasons why I shouldn't do this, but I can name 2 that are telling me I should do it, and I'm gonna lean on those 2.
It's calculated risk, right? I mean, and without taking calculated risks, without using your logical brain and your heart and your experience, like how are you ever rewarded? How is there ever a bigger and greater and more meaningful return unless you do sort of put some skin out there? I mean, I definitely can relate to that. We did the same thing. I remember when we were talking over lunch that I had hired an operations manager who I think has a pretty similar role as your director of ops, Nick.
Yeah.
And we just spent all of our focus from last year, because we knew we had steady work in, and we grew and hired some in-house carpentry team there, and threw lots of money at everybody else that was already there, and pay people at the top of the market here to keep them in-house, because I wanted to acknowledge sort of the risk that they were taking, and the care that they were giving, and the way that their involvement was the only reason why the work was going to be as good as it was. But all of our systems over last year was just about systems, and it was about like efficiency, and about how we communicate with clients, and how how we went mostly all open book and cost plus at when the pandemic hit, except for one contract that was already, it was like 3/4 of the way, between 3/4 and 7/8 done. So we only had a few things to do, but other projects that had just started that we had contracts, we shifted over from fixed fee to open book. And I was like, if we're going cost plus, we need to create this like client view and a live dashboard of all of these categories. And that's really where our time and investment's been over the last year and a half, is working with this company out of Texas to do these client dashboards and use all the information that all of our employees use for T-sheets when they clock in under a specific classification, whether it's anything from framing to air sealing to finished carpentry to punch list, are all categorized and park their ways into buckets, and they have, numerical hourly values attached to them. And the client every Friday gets a client view, and they know exactly how much the project is already costing and how even liquid they need to be before the invoices 2 weeks ahead are coming. So that's been really what we've focused the most on.
When you say you're working with a company, you're building this dashboard? Because correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like
we built it. Yeah, we built it, and we're trying to scale it up in some sense and develop it. But yeah, it's a company out of Texas named FinOptimal. And the what we call it is the magic, right? So they use, I can go into a dashboard and look at, excuse me, every single project has its own tab in the dashboard, and every in-house laborer clocks a certain amount of hours within there. There's live views of, everything is measured with regard to sort of what the predicted value was of something. Say we park, I know enough about houses now to be like, demo's probably going to be 15 grand. So we'll put in 15 grand there, right? And that is the baseline upon which everything gets estimated. Then we'll do some site prep work, we'll salvage some things, we'll have the demo sub come in, and then of course they really finish 90% of it, and we have to do the 10% and finish stuff, or maybe stairs get removed later. But at any point in time during the demolition, you can see the percentage of that budget versus the percentage of completion. And if those are pretty close, if you're 50% complete when we've spent 50% of the budget, you're good. So the software is pulling from T-sheets, it's pulling from our Expensify software, it's pulling from QuickBooks, and it's pulling from Bill.com, which we use for all of our accounts payable. And yeah, it's pretty cool.
But why develop this on your own when there's other options out there? Like,
because I know you. Yeah, we talked about this. I know you. I ran because in the cost plus world there isn't anything out there.
Right.
With fixed costs and change orders, I think Buildertrend and Co-Construct do a great job. We've tried both.
Yeah, agreed.
When we shifted to cost plus, there was nothing that was fluid and malleable like that was out there.
Sure.
That we tried. So
that's a big reason why we switched to Procore.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Procore is mostly used by commercial builders. So what's your experience with Procore? And it's way more expensive, right?
Substantially more expensive.
Like 5x.
Yeah.
Right. So
it's revenue based. So the more you do in revenue, the more it costs.
I see.
But
so
yes,
you're probably underutilizing it as a residential builder, but all the tools are there.
Yes. Well, I wouldn't say we're underutilizing it. We're actually utilizing a lot of it. We're underutilizing it compared to what we were using, say, in Buildertrend, where, and I have a great relationship with them, and I've really, it was hard for me to walk away, but my team, did the research, and they came to me and said, Nick, this is something that we really need to consider because it solves a lot of the big issues that we're having with software. And ultimately we made the switch because, I said, if there's a tool out there that makes our job easier and it's worth investing in.
Sure.
and from a cost plus, yeah, I mean, we're operating on a cost plus contract, AIA, contract documents, and we've got that set up where, I guess my point is, you said about the underutilization. We were working at the top of Build-A-Trend's capacity.
Exactly. Yeah.
And now we're working at the lower portion, if not the bottom of.
That's what sort of what I meant. Yeah. Right.
So, but it's been enormously helpful, even from a billing perspective for the client. We're getting, it's kicking out a formalized draw request with % complete and what we billed last time and expected, amount to completion, and change. It is.
And you work with AIA contracts a lot, right, Nick?
Only as of recently. So this was part of this last year of redeveloping.
With the bigger jobs and those bigger architects that are insisting.
Using that. Well, actually, no one's even insisted upon it. We took it upon ourselves. It was actually something Julian brought to the table. He's like, listen, let's get ahead of all of this stuff. And we sat down with, got connected with a great lawyer, and he really helped us, craft that AIA to work in our favor, and
using the 105 or the 107 or
107, I believe.
Yeah, probably the 107. I don't know.
I think it's interesting, like that you've developed your own software or your own portal.
Yeah.
But it works, and I think that
I don't even think there's anything else out there like it. It works so well.
So let's go back. Why you had, in conversation, you had talked about the importance of being open book and transparent with costing, and you made this switch. Like you made a very intentional switch to it. Why? Like walk through the reasons as to why.
Well, really, at first when COVID hit, it was the volatility of the cost of materials and that the amount of uncertainty that would be, and the sort of effort that would be incurred to perform construction in the middle of a pandemic was something that I felt like that was the simple case, right? Like, there's no way we're going to be able to predict. And what I told clients was, once we start to see patterns emerge, and that could be in 2 months, that could be 6 months, let's reevaluate this and sort of see what it is, right? See what can be done, if we can fix some of these costs. But really, I think the reason now that we do it is the clients that we work with have such a baseline high appetite for design and such ambition when it comes to these projects that no matter how thoroughly it's drawn or bid, it is never really ever going to be fixed costs. And what clients don't understand, especially the people that have never done a project before, is when you start a project and you see a house, you see the superstructure, you see a wall come down, psychologically, you become so much more interested in the possibilities when they become literal and tangible in front of you. And you're like, you know what? Let's put that glass wall in actually now. And to go back and spend all that time developing change orders, and really now also, with supply chain stuff, we're signing pre-con agreements a year before projects. We're ordering appliances 6 months before we even do demolition. And now even the pre-cons are starting to go away because if owners want to get our construction schedule, they need to sign a construction contract because we're, 12 to 18 months out, and only a $10,000 deposit is going to get you on the schedule, and that's going to be non-refundable, and it needs to be, because we are going to park you in the calendar and think about our team and all of our subcontractors. We're going to leverage everything we have to try to get pre-construction momentum, right? And that really comes down to it. And also in the middle of a project, if somebody doesn't show up, or if a flooring subcontractor becomes unavailable, or if our one electrician is is sort of booked up and somebody else that we know is available and can come in and trim it out for us, or trim out a couple rooms that are important, like maybe an owner wants to get a home office online 6 weeks before, then we just bring that, we're able to sort of just move and focus on production, but keep it really transparent, right? So like every time they're asking for something, we're giving what I call a WAG, right? A wild ass guess. Or we can procure it, right? If it's like, actually, we do want to do air conditioning now in the whole, we do want to do all new AC in the house. Like, oh, good to know. Like, we're 6 weeks from delivering the project too, so let's get on that. And obviously, we're up against the schedule, and the focus for me and for my guys and for my gals, like the people that are on the ground working and doing construction, it wants to be an efficiency and wants to be hitting that schedule. And you know, if all that time is taken to stop, to send a detail, to get a price, to procure, to wait for the price to come back, it's just like construction just comes to a screeching halt. So it does allow us just to be more flexible and malleable and like proactive and reactive to whether it's aesthetics or logistics. And all the while we're saying, you know, here's this thing, here's what it's costing us. You pay the markup, we're good, you know.
Do you what's the typical size of your project from a dollar value?
Anywhere from $350 up.
Do you think $10,000 is enough to lock in that schedule? Have you had anyone walk away?
Yeah. Have I had anyone walk away? Yes, I have.
And that 10 grand covered the cost that walk away?
Hard to measure what that's a great question.
I think it's a timing thing too. Like it depends on when they walk away. It is. And
correct.
You know, it's like, hey, you sign a pre-con, 10 grand,
yep.
You know, and we're not going to start construction. I'm going to put you on the schedule for 12 months from now. But say you're a month out and you've only collected 10 grand and they're like, you know what? Screw this. We're out. It's like you got 30 days to put something together to keep your cash flow where you need it.
Yeah. I mean, we had a big oh shit like that happened last year, and you know, I'm not going to name names or anything, but it was a real reckoning moment. And it was a mutual sort of separation, and I had to spend a very stressful Q4 and Q1 filling the gaps. And it wasn't even if it was 50, it would have still really, really hurt. And I think when you do, those lessons are really hard, but I think this one was it was so clear that there was just going to be crazy, and it was just going to be heartache and pain and stress and sleepless nights. And the fact that it was a $2.5 million job, ultimately, within the last, I think 2 or 3 days after it happened, when we walked away, I was like, I began to sleep again, and my stomach wasn't in knots, and we ended up filling the gap just fine, luckily, with a lot of smaller stuff. But I think it depends on size and timing, Nick. I think you're right. Like if they walked away right at the last hour, and it was a huge project, but we were I mean, I was also relieved, you know. It's like it's a hard thing to learn. So I think now more than anything, it's just like the contracts, the deposits, like it's just there to be sort of forgotten about, and it's an acknowledgement of commitment. Because all the clients that we have, like, they can bury us. Like they can bury us and bankrupt us in the blink of an eye. And that contract is only there as, it's not even a hedge for us. For them and for us, it's this thing where we just nod and shake hands and hopefully high five, and it goes in the desk and it never gets pulled out again. And inside of are the mechanisms of which, you know, there's clear language about how change orders work and what person, you know, when a lead carpenter's there, they cost this much, and what the markup is, and all that stuff, and what the walkaway clause is, and the termination, and all that stuff is there. But I mean, the reality is, like, I don't have a fighting chance. Like, I could be put out of business by any of our clients, you know. So the deposit is a little bit of it's more than a good faith gesture.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think the fact that it's non-refundable gives, you know, owners, at least from the Spidey sense, it gives them a little, like, skin in the game,
sure.
right? But ultimately, it doesn't really matter either, the deposit, you know. 10 grand is not, you know, as a percentage of what we're doing on a yearly basis, it's just like, it's not that helpful.
That's what
I mean, it just depends on how much work is being put into place before, you know, like what that 10 grand is skin in the game, but that's not going to cover any costs of pre-construction.
No, but we're billing pre-con monthly, and that isn't even touching that 10K. So you could have a construction agreement with a 10K deposit, and we could be performing pre-construction on a monthly basis that would get billed, and then we start construction.
Okay, so you're billing for your pre-construction. The 10 grand,
certainly,
yeah, the 10 grand is like you give it to me and then I talk to you. Yeah.
Well, no, it's not. I talk to you. You get.
Well, you get so it on the schedule, but it's
correct.
Not actually being used for something tangible like time.
No,
right.
No, it is just
that makes a big difference.
It's given back as a credit at the end in the last couple invoices as retainage.
Sure.
And if we're signing pre-construction, that's only a $2,500 retainer, and we're just billing monthly for pre-con until. Well, we don't know what this project's going to be. We just want to have you be at the table early and often with the architect,
right? Giving
constructability, cost information, bringing your subs through, starting to price packages, and then the 3 deliverables of pre-con are, you know, the costing estimate and the scope and the schedule, and that's it, you know.
But I mean, if you're getting paid for that work, again,
yes.
You know, that's important that deposit isn't funding that. So it's not like, oh yeah, I'm covering the cost of this pre-con, or
correct.
You're not going out of pocket. Like, you're not putting work in place without getting paid for it.
That's right. There might be, I don't know, $3,000 left on the table if they don't pay pre-con for a month or something like that. Then it's like we just eat that $3,000, and the 7K is whatever. You know, it is what it is, but
yeah. I mean, that is important to note, because that's a big difference there. You know, a lot of people are taking a pre-con deposit and they're using that to fund their pre-construction.
Right.
Yeah, no, I think it needs to be like architects do, right? It's or lawyers even, right? It's a retainage that keeps the interest of our firm available and ready for action and at your service. And we will render services as long as you say go. And when you say stop, then we can talk about the retainer, or, you know, then we can apply the retainer, whatever that might be. But that's the idea, that they're both non-refundable. And that we didn't always have it. We didn't always have it that way. Just be like 6 weeks into pre-con and be like, we're done. I'm like, oh my God. What? Like, all right. Yeah, we want our money back. Okay, fine. Still writing checks. We still have to do it. I had to write one today to refund a pre-con.
Why?
Like, okay. Well, because it wasn't non-refundable in the contract. It's only something we've done starting like 6 months ago or something like that.
So wait, so it was refundable. It was previously refundable. You were billing for your time.
Well, it wasn't explicitly non-refundable.
Yeah. Right. But you're covered for your time, but you're not.
Yes.
Yeah, I got you.
Correct. But there was some hours that were not spent that they had prepaid for, so I had to write a check for those, you know.
Yeah.
But we've since made it non-refundable, so.
How does this all, going back to like acting, like, are you still involved in acting? Are you still?
No, not at all. No.
Why?
Why? I mean, I can't do both. There's no way.
Why is that?
They're two different modes And logistically, it's impossible. There's no way now. I mean,
unless you built your company to sustain without you, right? I guess.
But why though?
No, I'm
why?
not. Yeah, I'm not saying that.
I
That's
couldn't even. I couldn't. I could bring on. I could. There's definitely. There's definitely a really pretty clear, like, idea now that we might build in multiple different places, and if we do that,
meaning around the country.
Correct.
Yeah.
If we do that, which it feels and looks, I don't know. I'm sort of walking down the road, right? I'm not pretending like I have it figured out. I'm not pretending we're doing it. I'm just walking down the road, and there's a lot of things drawing me to one specific location, and that's far more interesting to me than it would be to like return back into.
Okay, so let's forget
my acting life.
Then forget the acting.
But also at COVID, like, who the fuck needs any more of like a white act? Like, who needs? Do you need any more of me doing acting? Like, really?
I think
honestly,
was it Tyler? Were you? I think it was you and I talking about like how, nowadays entertainment. It used to be like you'd have to watch TV and it would be all these actors, and now it's entertainment is on our phone and everyone is an entertainer. Influencers.
Nick, you generate. I think. Is there anyone that generates more content than you?
Oh, I'm sure there
is. In the world?
No. As a high-end residential builder in this country, is there anyone that generates more content than you?
I mean, I would guess that Matt and I are probably generating.
Besides Matt,
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I'm not even. I don't know. I feel like Matt and I are probably on like producing very close to the same amount of content.
Yes, and I think my and we talked about this at lunch. My sort of, I don't know if it's just this block or this resistance I have about wanting to put my face in front of the camera, having already done that, and now being in a position as a builder where I want to share some of these things. I feel somewhere.
But I think we talked about. Yeah, we did.
We did. I feel like shy and humble about this. Like, I don't know what it is.
And
maybe you can talk me off of my.
Well, I don't think I need to. Like, you don't need to put your face in front of it. I thought, like, I think if I were you, I would. But that's just because I
because you do.
Because I do. But I don't think it's right nor wrong where it's like.
No, that's not what I'm asking you.
Yeah, no, and I think it's like you could just let the work speak to it. But I guess I wanted to just go back to the acting thing just because I think it's interesting and how you kind of went from, because a lot of people in New York and LA, like it's like they act, they get these gigs, and then they're in the restaurant world, they're the service industry. It's like they're and they're sustaining it. It's like to go into building and remodeling and then trying to act, like I can't imagine that, where it's like I'm not an actor by any means, but right. I still film with other people and I do my own content. And it's like and that's overwhelming in itself.
Yeah, you're the main character of all of your content.
Right, and it's like to also be called like, hey, you got to shoot tomorrow. Like, there's a lot that needs to be put in place. So, but you just opened up about something that I'm super interested in, is building everywhere, and it's
I knew you were. Yeah,
and it's
we talked about this.
Whether it's nationwide or worldwide, it's like I'm so interested in. My legacy leaving this world of like building these insane homes. Just like that's what I want to be known for, is like the builder, like the builder that built the most insane shit. But for you, as much as you want to disclose, it sounded like you were kind of holding some stuff close to the chest there. You have this one particular location that you may or may not
Los Angeles,
LA. So like, why? And you say you're walking down this road. Like, what's this road look like?
Lots of. So my best friends live there. My daughter goes to school in Southern California, and we'll probably stay out there. The resources, the designers and the architects I know that are calling me out there, talking about temperament and concierge construction. my temperament specifically.
Oh, gotcha.
Well, just saying like you have a perfect temperament and aesthetic to build out here. And the model that you've created in Philly of doing sort of concierge construction, which is vertically integrated concierge construction, which is, there's somebody boots on the ground there all the time. There's a long-term in-house team that understands we have our best practices and we crank them out. We do them over and over again. It doesn't exist out there. The quality of construction is just it's not great out there. So, and it's really warm and sunny. like it's really beautiful there. I spent the last day, my last day surfing, and I was like, oh my God, cliffside. We went up to Big Sur with my daughter.
Big Sur is
amazing. This psychological expansiveness of being out there and the aesthetic beauty is just undeniable. I don't know. But I love how gritty Philly is, and I would never not build here. And we're starting to do a little bit of stuff. I think we talked about this down in Cape May at the shore. That's why I asked you, Tyler. We're doing a few small projects down in Cape May where I have a beach house, and I've been going there for 10 years, and it's a really, really cool town. And there's a lot of shitty, ugly, plastic, fake Victorian stuff that's being built down there, not a lot of modern, high performance, beautiful natural stuff. So, but getting people to show up in Cape May for work is Cape Maybe is the phrase that gets used down there.
So far from everything.
And yeah, it's far, and nobody works really. Starting at 10 o'clock, they'll sort of show up. But so I don't know. I'm just the LA thing has become just something that I've been leaning into in the last few months. I met somebody last summer, an architect last summer that was on the East Coast. And then when I was out there last week, I was just out there last week. I took tours of a couple houses that she built, and I met. I was hanging out with oddly Ramin Shamshiri. I don't know if you know Studio Shamshiri. I think they do commune design. They do some of, I think, the most beautiful design work, certainly in this country and beyond. So that's sort of that. I'm just kind of going down that road. So
what is that like? How do you? Because I have my ideas on this, but how do you see? Say someone calls you and says, Brian, I got this lot in LA. You're the builder, whatever. I'll give you $10,000, $100,000, whatever it is. We want you to build. Where do you start? What's your setup?
Well, my structure here in Philly, we've dialed in our processes to the point where I feel like I can just transfer the temperature of how we work over there, which is there'd be a separate operations manager that I've already found someone that would do it.
How'd you find that person?
It's one of my best friend's wives.
Gotcha.
She works at Patagonia right now. And she's just feeling she's looking for, her mom's an interior designer. It's just a perfect fit. She's almost exactly similarly wired as my operations manager, Lucia, here in Philly. And Lucia's a trained sculptor and renovates her mom's house and her house on the weekend, and also ran a nonprofit, so understands organizationally spreadsheets, understands money, profitability, but also constructability, assembly.
Hopefully Yvonne isn't listening to this, the founder of Patagonia.
No, I can tell you he's probably not. So what does it look like? I would need probably, it would take me, the soonest we could probably build would be spring of next year, right?
That's fast.
But interestingly enough, I think one of my project managers might be interested in going. There's another one that I almost hired that would be interested. And there's a couple owner operators. Sort of the magic sauce of Osborne Construction is I have the great fortune of having 3 project managers that all owned and ran their own GC outfits. So they understand everything not just about project management, but about running a business, but none of them want to run businesses or sell, but they understand communication with clients. They understand respectability. They're all very, very stand-up people, and they know they're so inventive and creative. So finding somebody like that was an owner operator that just didn't want to do it anymore. And then labor force is going to be the biggest thing there, right? And then contractor license, whatever, you got to sit for a test, and then there's like a $10,000 bond that you give to the state of
You don't need a
California.
license in California. We've already heard that.
Is that true?
One out there.
Someone communicated that to us, but I don't
Pretty much. I mean, everyone says LA. Nobody in LA is licensed.
They're not for the stuff. Oh, is that right? That's hilarious.
I mean, I think the biggest struggle would be.
Yeah, so we'll see. I mean, sorry, Tyler. Go ahead.
We've heard the biggest struggle in LA is the quality of labor out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's one. I'm sure you follow Dow Bill, right?
Yeah.
You know Jim Dow.
Yeah.
He's a paper contractor, but is becoming, I think, less so these days. There's definitely a lot of carpentry positions that are being filled, and they're looking to hire often. But
I think they always have a list on their website of people they're looking for.
Oh my God!
I was on there once, and it was like looking for a PM in Honolulu, a super in
it's
Denver, labor in Austin, Texas. It's like,
yep. But he's got an interesting structure. So
I've been trying to get him and I've been talking with.
Oh wow, interesting.
I think he just had knee surgery or something, so now he's like.
Got it.
He's supposed to schedule it.
Wow, that'll be a really good one. I'd love to pick his brain.
Yeah,
too.
and that's really like I'm really interested in hearing how it's structured. And it sounds like you know a little bit more than I, because I don't know anything. But I just was out in Sun Valley, and they had came into that town and built a pretty epic house with a fantastic architect. But I talked to a local builder, and he's like, yeah, they came in, they built that amazing house, they did a couple projects, and then they just took off. Like once the work dried up, they were gone. And I had asked him, like, did that bother you? Like, yeah, it bothered us. Like, why wouldn't they hire a local guy? And if I thought of that, I'm like, I do understand that. It's not that I wouldn't want to be there. It's not that I want to go there and take work away from someone else that, might be just as deserving, but I don't want to be. I also don't want to limit what I build based on my geographic location. It's like I'd rather work with amazing architects and clients, and and build anywhere necessary. So that's that's exactly going into my question about all right, you hire this director or this operations manager and this PM, and you're in LA and you have this one house. If you is it essentially once you get that first one, now your focus goes into marketing and sales in that area?
100%. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And also the work speaks for itself, right? The quality, the process speaks for itself. I've never done even marketing. I mean, the only thing we spend money on are photos. We talked about this at lunch too. I was like, shit, I need to really plunk down some coin on marketing, because we don't ever do it. And I've just taken the organic approach, like, okay, let's just focus on the job that we have, make it the best it can possibly be eternally mindful of making it a process that is enjoyable and is, because it's going to be painful no matter what for the clients. At least there's going to be some surprises. Let's try to be extremely ahead of everything that happens, and try to make it the most transparent, communicative, positive experience that we can. And let's let that relationship be the seed for other future relationships. And can that happen in a little bit of an accelerated way? I don't know, but I think when you start working, I think it's different. It's different than starting my business in 2007 and having a really clear idea of, sort of what we're really good at, what we want to do, and having a really clear systematic with regard to sort of construction and systems and operations, and taking all of that work and that temperature and that knowledge from 15 years or 16 years and, just shrinking it and finding two people and sort of growing it out quick, right? But it is going to be the most challenging thing will be to get good quality labor. And I've done some research, and I'm like, oh, this person's a boss. I would love to hire her. Like, oh wow, I'm never going to hire that person away from there. And like, that's never been my style too, of like poaching people. I feel like that's really shitty. And people have come to me, from companies I know that are in direct competition. I'm like, well, have you told your boss? Because I want to be very respectful. Yeah, they know they know I'm looking for something else. Okay, well, that's cool.
It's Brian. It's interesting. Like, I've always felt the same way about poaching, but here's my but. Recently, it's like it's been obviously increasingly hard to find people, and I sat down one night and I'm like, I don't want to just poach, because I've had people poached away from me. And it's always like this secretive, like, hey, I'm so-and-so, give me a call, I want to just chat. And, I got to a point where it's like, we need these people. Like, these guys are, that guy that's at this other builder's, outfit, he's been there for 15 years or whatever the case might be. He doesn't, like, he's not, maybe no one's reaching out to him, or I haven't reached out to him, where it's like,
right, like they don't even know they want to make a move.
Right, and it's and I thought
Right.
I thought of that, and I was like, and I reached out to a few of them. And I'm like, hey, listen, I really respect what you're doing, who you work for. Like, this is in no way me trying to poach you. However, if
I'm poaching you.
Yeah, but however, like if you're ever considering another opportunity, I would love to just have a conversation and introduce you to who we are and what we do.
Yeah.
And I've had a few people reach back out like, hey man, like I really appreciate that. Like, I appreciate you're not just like blatantly trying to talk to me and like convince me to come work for you. And I've never really given it much thought about ever leaving here, but you know what? I am kind of unhappy or feel as though I might be stagnant. So let me consider that. And, and that was my intent, is like, I didn't want it to be like, hey, I'm trying to steal you away from something that you love because I'm better. It's more like, hey, just so you know, there are other opportunities out there that if you aren't 100% happy,
Right.
maybe what I can offer could get you to 100%.
Right.
But I agree. It's like, it's a shitty, I think the whole poaching with no respect is shitty.
Yeah. I think finding a good manager, a good project manager for me is and always will be the key. Because I don't know if you've read the First Break All the Rules book about management, but that's something I refer to all the time, and it really talks about sort of great people and great employees are really only as great as their managers. And I feel like it talks a lot about sort of your employees' strengths, and like some employees don't have a vertical rise from like labor to PM. Some actually might be better suited and want to be just a lead carpenter, and the people that you think might just want to be laborers might have PM ambition or management ambition or design ambition. And doing self-reviews, we do them every quarter. When I say self-reviews, they are really intended to be self-reflective, and folks are meant to land in with some things they've been thinking about, with their lives, with their personal lives as well as work, and like what the challenges have been. And we get some feedback from PMs to do that, but to contextualize what those conversations are about. But I feel like as the owner operator, sitting with your people 4 times a year, just being like, hey, what's up? How is everything? How is this going for you? Like, word on the street is you're crushing it. Like, we're all really, really, I'm so surprised. Like, I thought you were just going to be a laborer, and like, boom, I want to bump you up pay wise already. And we try to also disconnect the money conversation from the self-reviews, that become a little more of a holistic conversation. And it's not all about, sort of, can I get a raise or something, but I don't close it off. I'm not closed off to that idea, but I think finding a good PM would probably unlock all of the opportunities, and finding a good PM that's out there that might have some resources and access to labor that we could take
in LA
in LA that we could take from 1099 to make them in-house employees and get them insurance and get them health, and because I feel like there are so many paper, there's so many paper structures out there right now, but investing in your people, like in that way, and making sure they're protected and stuff is really important to me, and I think it would eventually resonate. But you're right, Tyler. That's going to be the hardest part. And I don't think we're going to be able to. I think we'll start with a small one. I think we'll start with a small project where there's little risk.
Yeah. It's funny. I've probably talked to, I think, 2 people out in California about doing a project. And I'll never forget. Usually I get right to the point about budget just to make sure we're aligned. Mm-hmm. And this chick had me wrapped around her finger, like talking to me about the project. It was on the Pacific Coast Highway. I think it was in
oh my god,
I think it was in Malibu. And she's like
architect or owner?
She was actually a real estate agent, but she was also a developer.
Even worse.
She owned like the whole hillside, like had 6 properties on it. She's like, look up this address, and I looked it up. I'm like, oh my, like this is an amazing piece of property. And she's like, and look up this architect. And I look at the architect, and she's like, see, like all glass house. I'm like, yeah. She goes, that's what I want to build. I'm like, yep, signed up. Like, and she's like, and I want to start it next year. I've seen your work online. I want to work with you, blah, blah, blah. And we're going around and around and around. And then I'm like, how big of a house are we talking? She's like, I don't know, maybe like 10,000 square feet. I'm like, okay. Like, I'm warming up to this a lot. And then I was like, you know what? I didn't even ask. Like, do we have some sort of budget in mind? And I don't remember exactly what she said, but she basically said, yeah, and I figured since you're from Boston, it would be cheaper than hiring a GC out here. and I was like, I'm not sure. I'm not really sure how you came to that conclusion.
Yeah.
And I was like, so I have to, politely decline. She goes, well, I don't know if I would do that if I were you. I feel like this could be how you break into the California market. I'm like, no, it definitely could be. I just won't be able to afford to do it. Like,
did she ever mention a budget?
Yeah, it was like $2 million or something like that.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, it was very, very low. Yeah. Like, you weren't building anything. And she started talking about like, I could dip into the labor pool over the mountain because they're cheaper. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, we're getting to
we're getting into deep red flag territory.
Yeah. And
do you guys have a red flag list?
No, not.
One of my colleagues here in Philadelphia, Kenny Grano, who runs Buckminster Green Construction.
Oh yeah.
Do you know Kenny? Do you follow his stuff?
Yeah, I follow.
He's such a good dude.
He's got a red flag list.
He has a whole red flag list. So whenever we have lunch, we have lunch as much as we can. Of course, before the pandemic, we were having lunch every 6 months or 4 months or something like that. And then we just finally had lunch for the first time, 3 weeks ago. We hadn't seen each other for the whole pandemic, but are constantly sharing resources. We're to the point where we're like, you should have Kenny build it, and we pass or something. And he's like, this person is too crazy. I can't deal with them. Brian can probably deal with them. So we've done that. We've had projects teed up that we just handed over to each other back and forth. It's been there's no other builder in town that I've had that sort of luck and relationship with that sort of like even exchange. But he was the one that sort of introduced me to he's like, oh, that's on my red flag list. I was like, red flag list? He's like, yeah, I have a whole list of red flags. I was like, well, what are some of them? And I think one of the first ones is like when the owner is the designer. I was like, oh, we do that 75% of the time. I love that option. Yeah. He's like, no, I don't go near those. And then, but most of them are around the disconnect between scope, scale, size, and budget.
Right.
And I think at this point we could probably all figure out within a 15-minute conversation with an owner whether someone's actually serious or not, or if they just think they're serious.
Yeah. The budget one is tough, and we've had that conversation on the podcast too, where some people just genuinely don't know.
They don't know,
and they throw out a number that puts them in the realm. And
that's right.
And if it's a hard, it's like, well, hard pass. Then they may just need to have been educated more, where it's like, listen, you were asking for a $2 million project, and that's what I explained to her. At this time, it's like, no, we're in the territory of $10 million, like
100%.
And she was like, well, that's just out of the question. I'm like, totally understood. I'm just not, we're not, like, I'm not sure you'll be able. I can't tell you that you're going to be able to build that or not, but I can tell you that we can't build that, and 100%. And that's the further education of like what it's not necessarily a hard no when someone gives us some of those parameters, but the red flag list is genius, and it's something that we talk about all the time. And I was working with a coach for a while, and they had me do client personas and like go back 2 years and write out every client that you ever had, and then what they did for work, and how they, how, like, on a 1 through 10, did you like working for them? Did they pay on did they pay on time, or how many days, late would they pay? Like, all these things. And in going through it, I realized, man, like, anyone that's in a particular category for work, say like, maybe in construction or real estate, it's like those were more difficult clients. And obviously there's other parameters to that, but it's like, we started bucketing people into, hey, those aren't our best clients,
Yep.
And even the budget thing isn't necessarily the number as much as like how they see that entire concept, where it's like, we'll do demo, or I want to use my electrician. And it's like, maybe your number fits, but your priorities are just not in line with what we.
Those are two things we talk about a lot, is about the optics of just, we don't want to call those guys because they're just too expensive.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's
do you know why?
True. That's not true. That's not also, it's deeper than that, right? And sort of like, it's not that we're too expensive. It's that it's so much better built. It's that we've invested in our team. It's that we pay our team well. We have a list of best practices that we use, where we'll always level a floor. We're always doing at least a baseline number of air sealing and things like that. So if you want something that's like fast and cheap, then or just cheaper, sure, just pull some of those things out. But yeah, it's really, that's a tough thing. Like, how do you?
There's so many good things that you do as a business, and the way you structure your operations, and then like when they're gonna just kind of hone in on, but they're expensive. But like, there's so many good reasons why it costs what it does.
That was the big thing when we walked away from in the fall. There was this expression and interest about how appreciative they were for the quality, and how we were vertically integrated, and how we had long-standing employees, and we could do all of these details in-house. But then when it came down to it, it was like a disconnect between, that was the reason why they chose us, and also the reason why they don't want to pay. I'm like, what?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Big red flag. Like, it's a big red flag.
So you're saying you value what we do, but you're not willing to pay for it.
Right.
Like, it doesn't even make sense.
Right. Yeah.
Or you just assumed that it was like, we're going to do that for free.
Right. Like, there's a disconnect between cost and value. Right.
I think it's interesting too, where I was thinking about this earlier today, about a project I did early on, and I don't know why specifically I was thinking about this hanger I made for a joist, and it was like, I'm making this a very long story for no reason, but either way, this joist the client came in. He was also the architect, designing his own house, and came in and was like, hey, that joist needs a steel hanger under it. It's something we're going to have to fabricate. And, I was like, yeah, no problem. We can fabricate. And he sent me a drawing, and I'm like, got it. And I went home that night, went into my shop, pulled out some steel, cut it on my bandsaw, welded it up, drilled the holes, brought it in, and installed it. And I never charged for that.
Sure.
And it's, and that I feel like is how so much of this industry is perceived as, like, this stuff should just be included. Like, it's part of, like, just get it done. And owner-operators are the, which is the majority of our industry, right? Most of us are owner-operators. Those guys were taking it on the chin because, It's just like, hey, we just got to get the job done. Like, I'll just go home and weld that real quick. Or Tyler jumps in his shop and goes and does something. I'll fabricate that mantle at night. Where it's like, when you think about it, and it's the right way would be, well, either charge for it, number one, or hire a steel shop. And what would they have charged?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's
this expectation that like, oh, contractors should give something too.
Right.
You should give up something too. Like what I'm giving you is this whole machine that's sort of dialed in.
And I think
I'm giving you your fucking house. and I'm giving you a year of my team's time.
My creativity, my thought, my process.
Like all that stuff, the problem solving, the engineering, all that stuff. And you should also pay a little bit too.
And I think
you should chip in.
And you
said they have you. It's like, we're working for you. I could be working for someone else.
Right.
Especially with a small company, you don't need that many jobs. Not that you're lucky that we're here, but you kind of also are lucky that we're here.
Right.
Yeah. At least now in this market.
It's like, you only pay
there
me
will be a time in
$10,000.
which it'll switch. Right. There'll be a time in which it'll switch.
But Nick, also, if that's serving you a benefit that you're able to weld up that hanger and bring it to the job, that's amazing. But if that's why people are hiring you,
right, they're taking advantage.
Not
of the situation.
necessarily great, right?
Yeah,
that's a good point.
And that exactly. And I think Brian, you said it earlier, the optics. And this is something that we worked really hard to do a better job at what we were doing when it came to pricing projects. Where I think I feel like I told this story about the $10 million job, where it's like we bid this job. We were one of 4 builders. I don't typically bid work, but I was invited to the table with these really great builders that I look up to. And and we priced the job, and we were like $7 million and change, and we were within $8,000 of another contractor. And then there was other builders that were a couple $1 million more than us. And it's like, all right, well, which is all great. Where the hell was I going with this story? Oh no, I had followed up with the architect, and I said, hey, I understand we weren't chosen as a builder. I asked who got it. They told me. I was like, great, that's who. If anyone got it, I was hoping it was them. I said, how did we look on paper anyway? To be honest, you guys, dollar for dollar at the bottom, everyone was pretty much aligned with, their trades. Some were making different assumptions, which led to the increased cost. But your fee was way more than everyone else's. I'm like, what do you mean? They're like 3 times everyone else. And I was like, but our fee at the time encapsulated a lot of costs. General liability insurance wasn't called out, supervision was partially called out, where it's like from an optics standpoint, if I had rewrote my general conditions as we do now, where it's like I have a full-time superintendent on that job, their salary is in the general conditions. I have a PM that dedicates 50% of their time to that job, that salary is in the general conditions.
Yep.
I have general liability insurance that if I don't do any work, I have a baseline fee I pay. Yep. If I do work, I pay for every dollar of work I do. That's in the general conditions. And when we started doing that, it's like, oh, we don't have to have a high fee. We can have a, air quotes, competitive looking fee, because we moved.
When you say fee, you mean the baseline markup on the cost of the job.
the plus.
Aside from general conditions,
cost, the plus, and then the plus.
Yep.
And it's like, hey, now all of a sudden we look competitive. It's like we are billing the same.
But also,
exact
your bottom
money.
line number, who fucking cares? Because your bottom line number was right where
Brian,
it needed to be.
You're agreed. Who cares? Everyone cares.
Why are you beating me up for my fee if I can deliver this project at a bottom line for the highest quality
at the same exact cost? It's like, well, I just don't. His fee's less, and but like you said, it's the optics of it. Yeah, where it's like, something, same thing with the insurance. We weren't billing that insurance line item. And now it's like I sat down with my insurance company and said, hey, what's my percentage? And they're like, it's like 1.118 or something like that. And I was like, all right, great. 1.2%.
1.2.
Yeah.
2%.
And I was like, great. And I'm like, we'll just add 1.2% to every job. So we're covering our general liability. Because if I wasn't doing that job, it would not cost me. It's a job cost. And when people look at it, they're like, 1.2%? Yeah, that's fine. And it's like,
it's you have to break everything out. It's
right.
like
and optically,
Denny's menu, and you're like, It's unbelievable. It's like, no, we always want a diner menu. We want to be able to elect or decline psychologically, even if things are part of the job and have to be cooked in no matter what. We want to be able to process them in part and parcel.
Do you think the super is going to spend 100% of his time on this? I'm like, I think the super is going to spend 150% of his time on this.
Yeah, exactly.
He's going to be waking up in the morning.
Underestimated.
Yeah, it's like, this is what it costs to do the job. But it's I just wanted to like rehash the whole side of like it is optics, and when you get into this competitive mindset or working with clients that challenge it, it's like the more detail. Like there's clients that have told us, I don't want all the detail. I'm like, yeah, well, you're gonna get it because I want you to understand that that.
Yeah, you're saying you don't want it right now.
Yeah, that $1 million in general conditions and it being our biggest line item on this entire job. Let me break down what that does. It's like, well, do we need this? I'm like, no, but do we need photo documentation of the house before you close the walls up? No, but when you call me back and you ask me to hang, a Murphy bed on the wall, and I can't.
That's one thing I know you guys have started doing that we started doing this year too with these higher end projects.
It's like, why wouldn't you?
Shit.
Oh
my God, we had to go back. We had to go back and do some opening up on. Do you remember that Chestnut Street project, the one that I showed you, all the plastered, the arches and the curves, of course, and the whole thing's plastered. Yeah. It's in a condo building that. The reason why the renovation happened was because an arsonist burned down the building after an argument with the landlord.
It's crazy.
The tenant in the first floor.
It's the craziest story.
Burned the fucking building down. And so luckily, there were kids and families Philly. There were kids and families that lived in this building, but thank God everyone was at school. No one got hurt, thank God. But because the fire was shared on the party wall, that whole building was razed and burned to the ground, the one he burned, and then all the units next door were like had to be totally gutted, and the fire jumped over and blah blah blah. So when we were working in this building, the clients had already waited a year to get in there. So they were doing the core and shell with a hilarious crew throughout the building, and then we were in there with our team doing this specific condo unit. So we close it up, and then I want to say 6 weeks after they moved in, we've got a bolt top kitchen in there that we had to crane in. It's just like you know what the gymnastics are, and we had to crane it in 4 stories up and whatnot. It's a continuous 14-foot monolithic slab that rolls down the island and whatever. So this. Like 6 weeks in, they're using their kitchen. It starts raining through their Miele hood onto their like Gaggenau cooktop, and they sent us videos. And I was like, "Oh my God, this can't be us. This isn't us," because the ceiling of the unit is double sheetrock fire rated and the sprinklers, and then we have another drop ceiling, a hat channel ceiling around there that we squeezed in some ductwork and stuff like that, and. And then the building super who was supervising all the core and shell, that PM was just like, it's definitely not us. And I was like, there's a toilet right up in that general vicinity. No one's used that toilet for 2 months. All right, well, can you get up there and flush it? And let's just keep flushing it. Let's just see if it rains. Flushing it. Nothing comes in. And so this whole drop ceiling with this like ellipse and all these mud 2 wax and everything, we had to cut this thing open, and we're looking back at all of our photographs and videos and stuff, and there's just not enough information there. And I was just like, fuck. So we had to make Swiss cheese of this whole beautiful lowered ceiling. And I was like, we're going to scan all of our work from now on. And if people don't want to pay for it, then tough, because the warranty has to shrink or something, because it's just like so much crazy stuff.
Dude,
that's behind the walls.
So what was it?
Yeah, yeah.
It was the toilet.
It was
a fucking toilet. Yeah, of course. And it was a wall closet. It was like a Gerber or Dervitt wall closet or something that would like incorrectly disconnected. So the flange, I don't know what it was, but it was definitely the toilet. I don't know exactly what it was, but it was the toilet, it turns out. So we had to make all those repairs for naught.
We're
for nothing.
we're chasing wall sensor issues with our radiant system right now, and it's like we're going through all of our. We took photos right before they insulated, and I'm going through. I'm like, there's no like, why isn't the sensor in that photo? It's like that. Wait, these photos weren't taken at the right time. These were taken before installation, but not before we boarded.
Wow.
And we probably have 15,000 photos in Build-A-Trend, and the other day hours, one by one going through, and I kept saving like every time we walk, like it was near that vicinity, I would take a picture of it, and I'm like, there's literally not one photo showing where that wire is. It literally must have gotten installed the day before they put up board.
Right.
And it's like, this is why we do this. This is why we have to do this. Is that when
it's just
like you have
one day when you get your installation inspection, the next day the scan happens, and then the following day is rock.
And we we did it with Multivista just recently, and they're funny because it's all web based. And his sales guy, I think he listens to the podcast, so hi Jack. But his sales guy emailed me one day, and he was like, hey, looks like Mike's been checking in on that project you guys did a lot on Multivista, because he's like getting notified that we're using it, and he's like, so it's worth it, right? And I'm like, oh, I hate that you know that. And I was like, but yeah, I mean, we oddly enough, like, the client is super sensitive to sound, and we had some boiler exhaust. It was all light gauge metal, and he's like, every time the boiler kicks on, I hear a loud bang inside my wall upstairs. And I was like, pull the 3D video up, or the 3D view, and you open it up, and it's the boiler exhaust jets across through holes in the stud, and I'm like, there's no isolation. That thing's heating up and rocking across the light gauge and making the light gauge pop.
And just popping the light gauge,
But it's, and then the crazy thing with that program is that you can then measure on screen within like 1/100th of an inch.
Yeah, it's what we used to use. We used to use those 3D scans to build our baseline Revit models.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's great. And it's, I mean, we still have to open the wall.
It's all point cloud. It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Yeah.
And it's, we're doing a big house now, and it's just like, yeah, we're scanning the whole house. Like, there's nothing else allowed going into allowed in the walls after we scan. You're going directly to insulate and board.
Yep.
And that, I've seen firsthand where, Matt down in Austin, I toured one of his homes, and he had two guys in a brand new house they just finished, and they were in this oak like living room. It was all paneled oak, and they were lagging these massive anchors into the wall to hang this piece of furniture she bought. And he's like, dude, if we didn't have this scanned, like, this would be a nightmare.
No.
But we were able to open up our iPad. We knew exactly where the studs were. There was water lines, vent lines, vacuum lines, duct work. He's like, and we knew exactly, like, we could measure it, and we knew that we were hitting dead center.
Yeah, that's rad. Yeah, that's the only way to go. What can you get them done for in Massachusetts? They're like $3,500 down here.
That's what we paid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Matterport you can do cheaper. We paid a couple $100 for Matterport. It's not as accurate.
Right.
But if you're doing a small space or a small reno, like a bathroom, it's actually, because they do it a lot for the...
Yeah, maybe for the Matterport, for the smaller jobs that we do, that would work. Yeah.
It's because they're doing them for the real estate agents, and it's like, it gives you enough information where it's like, hey, you get in the bathroom, you scan, like, to be able to look in that wall, be like, oh, that's how I ran that vent.
Yeah.
It's like, maybe you can't get super accurate with measurement. I think Matterport, I think the thing with them is that they get the point cloud data, but you're paying for how much they extract. So I think the data is actually there where you can get super detailed information. But but you have to pay for it. I think you have to pay more for the more accurate.
Wow,
which is, I mean,
that actually makes sense for the smaller projects.
Yeah, where it's like, hey, like, I'll pay the $300 to get it scanned. It's like, and actually, I just found this out because we're going to be doing we're doing one kitchen in New York City, and we're supposed to do another one in Buffalo, New York. And
you did end up doing that New York job.
Yeah, Ken's there.
How are you pulling that off? Working down there.
Ken's there now installing. It's just cabinetry.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
got it.
We're just supplying and installing or just supplying
Oh,
cabinetry.
cool.
But we have
Nice.
another kitchen we're supposed to build in Buffalo, and we were talking to the couple, and we were like, what you should do just to start off, if you can get a Matterport guy in there, we'll pay the $300 to get scanned, so we just have the model. And we got one that afternoon. And I was like, how'd you already? He's like, I did it on my phone. I was like, what?
Wow.
He's like, yeah, I downloaded the app on my iPhone and I went around and scanned my room, and it's a complete model. Like, we can see the whole geometric shape of the room. I'm like, so yeah, I think you can actually. I feel like we're advertising for these guys right now, but I think it's worth, especially for a small remodel, like download the app, scan the room, have that information.
Yeah.
I think the point is like, this is, even for you, Tyler, it's like, by the time you're finished, where it's like to have all that information to reference later on.
Yeah, to reference later. I mean, all the time, customers are calling you back, like to add this or to add that afterwards, or hang a TV or whatever it may be. And, it's not even for like a month after the job, but I work for the same people, remodels. I'm back there a year later, 2 years later. And to be able to be back in that same house where like we've renovated a bathroom on the second floor, and be able to see what's there when we're now downstairs or whatever it may be would be useful.
Yeah.
Nothing better than pulling down a TV off a wall and seeing 16 nail holes in the wall.
Totally.
It's like, where's that stud?
I mean, it's also, like a lot of stuff that we open up, it's just been added to over the years, and like we're fixing framing, and just to have all of that documented too, where it's like, no, we reinforced that floor, and like there's always, we're jamming stuff in these old spaces, so it's nice to know where everything is.
Yeah. Jens, I got to bounce. I got one of the team member self-reviews at 5 here.
No worries, man. Brian, appreciate you being on.
Yeah, it was really fun. Thank you, guys. It was fun.
We'll chat
Yeah,
soon.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Later.
See ya.
See ya.
How are you feeling?
I'm fine. I'm all right. I feel like I have a cold and a flu at the same time. I'm all right. Fine. My head's just fuzzy.
Yeah. Well, we got
my internet is like a little whack today in the new space. So
the new dudes. So we got a bunch of reviews. Rightfully so. So we got to pick a winner today for some swag. So they'll follow up with. Did
you hear that? Rachel must have like a cuckoo clock in this.
Oh, I did hear that.
Go off.
All right, I'm gonna have you pick a number.
Is,
1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5. All right, 1 through 5. Pick a number.
3.
1, 2, 3. All right, Jimmy Rocket 63. Shoot us an email with your size, your address. We'll get you some swag. Great time. Wow, great job, Nick.
Jimmy
Great content
Rocket.
for us in the industry. I actually listen to the podcast all day while I'm on my own job sites. I've been a professional wall covering installer for 38 years. It's nice to hear fellow craftsmen speak on my chosen industry. Sweet.
That's sick. That's like a dying art.
I know.
Everyone can do it.
What, wall covering?
That's what everyone just thinks that they're like, oh, wallpaper my own space.
Oh,
It's
I was
like,
gonna say,
nah, like,
no.
people who are good are good.
No. We get some people are filling in some funny names. Like, I'm just gonna read it. Salad is what food eats. Which I guess means he likes animals. And Abby Babby Fo Fabby.
Salad is what food eats. Interesting. Get an interesting audience.
Yeah. We got a bunch of good ones. Guys, leave us a review on iTunes. We'll read it in next week's episode. We actually have Mr. Build It on next week's episode. If you guys don't know who he is, I would say he's probably the most viral video content creator on Facebook. Every time I log into Facebook, his video pops. I'm like, dude, what are you paying them? He's like, nothing. He's into those like quick, like super fast time lapse videos of like, whatever, like how to renovate your bathroom in 20 seconds, and it's like blast through it, or like a bunch of those how-to clips. So we'll talk to him, Alex, next week. Appreciate you guys sticking around. And thanks to our partners, Duration Molding in Millwork, Reno Run, Rockwool, and Upstate Merch.